Hi, this is Arthur, and this is a summary of the story of the Archon Quests Chapter IV, Acts 3 and 4, released in Genshin Impact version 4.1. The Traveler and Paimon decide to take a break and head to Spina di Rosula's base in the court of Fontaine. Once there, a messenger shows up and asks them to meet with Nouvelette. They head over to Nouvelette and he explains the situation. Child has disappeared from the fortress of Meropide, Fontaine's main prison. Nouvelette and Farina then met the Knave, one of the 11 Fatui Harbingers, and agreed to send someone to investigate, meaning the Traveler. Nouvelette will arrange false charges and send the Traveler in as a prisoner where they can secretly investigate. Side note, the Fortress of Meropide is kind of a mini-society separate from Fontaine with its own laws and economy. It is under the control of Wriothesley, the warden and administrator. Nouvelette has little to no authority there other than sending guards to maintain security and maintains an amicable relationship with Wriothesley. The Traveler is processed into Meropide and is welcomed by Wriothesley. Wriothesley shows them around and they notice Linny, but try to keep that hidden. Wriothesley then introduces Sigewinne, the fortress's head nurse. Wriothesley eventually says goodbye and the Traveler begins their investigation. The Traveler soon meets with Linny, Lynette, and Freminette. They've been sent by the Knave to investigate a secret within Meropide, which they hope is the Hydronosis. They all work together and over the coming days learn that Child has escaped, there is a forbidden zone under Meropide, and the infirmary is suspicious. They come up with a plan where Freminette will swim through the pipes following Child's trail, and the Traveler and Lynette will investigate the infirmary. A few days later, the Traveler and Linny go to the infirmary to meet Lynette, but cannot find her. After looking around, they find a note saying Lynette was captured. Linny realizes Lynette was captured by Wriothesley. Linny rushes to Wriothesley's office and the Traveler follows. Once there, Wriothesley confirms that he has Lynette. Wriothesley also locked Freminette out in the sea after he swam after Child, which puts Freminette in danger as he cannot survive there indefinitely. Holding Lynette and Freminette hostage, Wriothesley asks Linny to bring the Knave to Meropide in order to have a face-to-face conversation. As the Traveler tries to convince Wriothesley to let them go, Linny attacks Wriothesley and is subdued by Sigewinne. Chlorine then shows up with an unconscious Freminette. Sigewinne examines him and concludes he ingested primordial seawater. Sigewinne administers some medicine and tells them that Lynette is safe in a room somewhere. They take Freminette to the infirmary where he wakes up and says that primordial seawater is mixing in with the regular seawater. Freminette also failed to find Child. The Traveler then heads over to talk with Wriothesley. Once there, Wriothesley speaks of a crisis in Meropide and that he hired Chlorine to come down and help with it. The Traveler then asks Wriothesley about the Forbidden Zone and Wriothesley takes them down to it. After traveling down for a while, they eventually reach a central room with a giant sluice gate in the middle. Wriothesley tells them that under the sluice gate lies the primordial sea. Primordial seawater levels also seem to be rising and leaking out. Wriothesley did some research on Meropide and learned that during the time of Egeria, the former Hydro Archon, all criminals were exiled from Fontaine. Some of those criminals repented and prayed to Egeria, who allowed them to return to Fontaine and build Meropide in exchange for guarding Egeria's secret. Over the centuries, more exiles came to Meropide and it became a community of its own, with few remembering why it was ever built. Wriothesley fears that if the sluice gate breaks, the prophecy will come true and the primordial sea will dissolve everyone in Fontaine. Wriothesley then takes them to a production zone where they see a giant ship under construction. Wriothesley then tells them that long ago, Fontaine used to be ruled by the Remurian dynasty. The Remurian king Remus came to this land after being inspired by divine revelation and found the seer Sabila, who took the form of a golden bee. Taking Sabila with him and riding on a huge ship called the Fortuna, he created his nation above the surging waves. He named his nation Remuria and used the Fortuna to find new tribes, calling on them to join his empire. It seems Wriothesley's plan has something to do with the giant ship he's building, though it's unclear in what way. The Traveler then meets with Linny, Lynette, and Freminette and tells them what Wriothesley shared with her. They head to the cafeteria and share a meal with Sigewinne before heading to bed. The next morning they are woken up by a commotion and learn that everyone was ordered to evacuate. The Traveler then runs down to the Forbidden Zone where the sluice gate is broken and Wriothesley and Chlorinde are holding back the primordial sea. Wriothesley tells the Traveler to go get Nouvelette and they do so. Nouvelette says he will deal with the primordial sea, but asks the Traveler to attend a meeting between Farina and the Knave and to protect Farina. Nouvelette then heads to the Forbidden Zone and uses some kind of power to seal the primordial sea beneath the sluice gate. Nouvelette mentions to Wriothesley that this solution will not last. Meanwhile, at the meeting, the Knave talks about the prophecy and the impending disaster. In addition to insulting Farina for not being more prepared, the Knave says that someone is gathering large amounts of indemnitium at the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinal. The knave eventually leaves and asks the traveler to walk her out. Outside of the meeting room, the knave tells the traveler that she has attacked Farina before while disguised. Farina never mentioned this to anyone out of embarrassment. After the attack, the knave concluded that neither Neuvillette or Farina are the true Hydro Archon and that Farina may be cursed. The knave then offers to cooperate in the future and leaves. Neuvillette then arrives and thanks them for protecting Farina. Neuvillette also reveals that his true identity is the Dragon Sovereign of Water, though he is not the first one and his predecessor is dead. Side note, the traveler has met Dragon Sovereigns before, namely Apep the Dendro Dragon. Neuvillette says he does not have the power to stop the Primordial Sea completely, as none of the living Dragon Sovereigns have their full power. Long ago, when the first usurper arrived in Teyvat, they seized part of the dragon's powers, which now forms the basis of the Archon's authorities. The only way to get his original power back is if the Hydro Archon disappears and returns his elemental authority back to him, but that is not viable given the status quo of Teyvat. Neuvillette then says goodbye and leaves. The traveler then returns to Meropide and checks in on everyone. After speaking to Wriothesley, they are granted permission to visit Meropide whenever they please. They return to the dormitories and go to sleep. Child's vision then glows and shows the traveler a vision of Child floating somewhere and a giant whale appearing above him. And that is the end of this quest in this video. If you've liked what you've seen here, please like, comment, and subscribe.